All right, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. We still got about 5 minutes to go. I see some people that are already popping in. See some people that have already popped on and stuff. So about 5 more minutes, we'll be going live. All righty, everybody. We are at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar series here. Starting off with lead generating with networking. So just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I value your time. I understand the true value of time. I was looking at the attendee roster and stuff before we kicked off. And this is actually a first for me. I actually only recognized a handful of names out there. So that tells me that either our social media, pushing this out through social media platforms and stuff, has gotten better, or people are sharing or messaging stuff. And if you shared, if you shared this message with your friends and coworkers, thank you so much. That means the world to me. And it is just I really appreciate that, and really honor that you guys were going to spend the next 60 or so minutes with me and stuff as we kick off a wonderful kick butt 2017, and we're going to talk about how to do some lead generating with networking. Excuse me here. Every hear me take a pause or clear my throat, I apologize. I'm fighting off a little bit of the bug and stuff that's floating around. And so if you ever hear that pause and stuff, I'm probably just grabbing a quick drink of water and stuff. So let's kick off a little bit structure for today's webinar. Going to do a quick introduction about me. The biggest reason is I always kind of find when I'm sitting in the audience of either a live presentation or a webinar type of presentation, I always kind of wonder who's up there doing the teaching, what type of background he or she may have, and really what's their what type of business are they in and stuff. And then we're going to kick into some awesome kick butt intense training. Then we're going to do a quick introductory and some advanced training starting January 24th. Do not worry, there is no pressure. Anybody that's been in business for more than a year or so, we've probably experienced that aspect of what I call the dangle the carrot training philosophy. And a lot of times that's going to be through webinars or through a live presentation where you feel like you feel like you're just on the verge of getting a great bit of nugget. You're getting some great value, and it just doesn't quite pop in and stuff. And then all of a sudden at the close, you find out that anywhere from $500 to $2,500 and a flight to California or Las Vegas or something of that aspect, and they'll answer all your questions. Well, you hate that. I hate that. So, my attitude is I would much rather deliver just great quality content and just absolutely just give you everything. And then, if you feel that you're ready to dive into the more advanced training, you feel like you're ready to kind of spend some more one-on-one time programs with us, perfect. We do have a mastermind that's going to be coming up. If not, jump over into like our YouTube channel, jump over into our podcast, jump over to our Facebook groups and stuff. There is a lot of content that we push out there, we put out there. And, my attitude is, if we all help raise the bars of the industries together. And and today, from what I can tell, we've got people in the real estate industry, and you'll discover I love my fellow real estate community people. For those of you that know me personally, you know why. For those of you who don't, you'll find out in a couple of minutes and stuff. I see some people that are in from the insurance industry, and I see some people that are in from the financial services industry, items of that aspect. And I'm pretty sure there's other industries out there represented. That was just kind of what I was able to tell by some of the names and the emails and stuff that came in. So obviously we're going to give you ways to reach out and to get more free training. Subscribe into our YouTube, subscribe into our podcast, connect with us on LinkedIn or Facebook or any of the social media. And then also an in-depth question and answer period. I will answer all your questions with in-depth answers. It could be on lead generating. It could be on networking. It could be on steps of closing the sale. It could be social media. It could be just general business. For those of you that also know me personally, you know that I'm health and wellness is something near and dear to my heart, something in that aspect. If I don't personally know the answer to it, we will kind of help figure it out, together and stuff. And so there should be like a little chat bar icon or something like that. Go ahead and free just to drop your questions in that. Right now I can't see it. All I can see is basically kind of what's up on my main screen. It should be on, your main screen and stuff. And, but any and all questions are going to get answered, in depth, to the best of my knowledge and stuff. So, little bit about myself. There's my picture. It's a couple of years out of date. My hairstyle has changed a little bit. And but for those of you that don't know me, I practice what I preach. I am a top producing real estate broker in Washington State. I was actually voted as one of the top 10 real estate brokers in Washington State for 2016 by the American Institute of Real Estate Professionals. I'm also a published author. I published the book Becoming Known, the Friend in the Business, and we're actually in the process of doing our second book. Actually, I just kind of did a whole revamping of it and stuff. And from that aspect, it brought me into being a speaker and trainer for multiple professional industries. Traditionally, I work with what I call the professional level services. So this is somebody that not only has to give top-notch, best professional level services to their client or to their customer, but they're also in charge of their own marketing. They're also in charge of their own lead generating. They're also in charge of finding and discovering their own customers and clientele. I'm also a member of the John Maxwell team. So anybody in there that's kind of a leadership type of person, definitely you'd recognize that name. If not, I always tell people, go to your local bookstore, go to the leadership section, and you will discover that John Maxwell doesn't have just a shelf in the leadership section. He has an entire section in the leadership section. I believe his total author count or book count he has written has now exceeded over 100 books. Biggest thing I want to point out here and stuff is I'm a small business owner. I'm not just a trainer that that hears something or reads something, goes, that sounds really cool. Let's put that into a training program. Actually, what we do is if we come across something or we read something, I look and go, hey, that looks pretty cool. How do we put this into our real estate team? Let's play with this. And so we tweak it, we play with it, we have fun with it, and we basically kind of perfect it. Then we bring that same training system over into our training company. And that way we work within a whole bunch of different industries and stuff. So everything that I teach on, everything that I preach, everything that I say, guess what? I personally do. My team personally does. It is, I'm not a fluff guy, I'm an in-depth guy and stuff. So with that, let's jump right into how to get the most out of today's webinar. What I've discovered is for those people that get the most out of the webinars, they turn off all their distractions. They silence their cell phones. They shut down their email. This is how I look at it. We're going to go really in depth for about the next 60 or so minutes and stuff, unless the building catches on fire or something of that aspects. An email can hold off, a phone call can hold off, items of that aspect. Get out some pen and paper to take notes. Never trust your mental, never trust your brain to remember for your future successes and stuff. Anytime that I'm a student in either a training, webinar, or a live training or something of that aspect, I've actually got a journal that I take with me and stuff. I've discovered over the course of years not to trust my memory to my future successes and stuff. And as I always tell people, listen fast because I talk fast. We are recording today's session and stuff. As long as technology works with us, then you'll see this today's session getting uploaded into YouTube and probably into like Podbean and pushed out through our various social media channels and stuff. But as I said, it is as long as technology is working with us. It always seems like Murphy's Law and stuff. If I anticipate technology is going to work perfectly, that's when we have issues. That's when we have crashes and the whole shebang and stuff. Whenever I bring it up, make a point of it, seems like we always have a good, clean recording. I also recommend for those of you that are kind of joining us and you're using Wi-Fi as your internet connection and stuff, actually hard cable in. It's just something that I've learned through the course of the years. And we actually have a pretty decent Wi-Fi signal here in the training studios, but I still always cable in just because it's just something about that direct link communication and stuff. All right. So let's get into the meat of the material here. Let's talk about some types of networking events. When I talk about networking events, I normally boil it down to what would be traditional networking events, and then what I've discovered and I call non-traditional networking events. Now, when we talk about traditional networking events, there are some that are basically, when I'm giving this presentation live to various groups or organizations across the U.S., these are the top 3 that always seems to pop up in just about any type of industry that I'm talking to and stuff. First and foremost, chamber organizations. Myself personally, I'm a very active member within my local chamber of commerce and stuff, and I highly, highly, highly recommend everybody out there gets active within their chambers. I always tell people there's 2 different types of people or 2 different types of companies that are going to join chambers of commerces. The first and foremost are your big box, names, your big box retailers or your medical groups or your very, your well-known community names. And these entities and these companies join the chamber not to network, not to get out there to meet people. It's actually a line item budget for the most part in their budget, and basically what it boils down to is that they tag that as their community involvement. And then you have other people, what was typically called the small to medium sized companies. And I hate that verbiage. I don't consider myself a small company. I definitely have bigger aspirations than a small company or a medium company. I consider myself a local company that, and I would challenge you to for everybody out there not to look at yourself as a small business, because none of us get into business to become small. We get into business to either create wealth, build a legacy, or something of that aspect and stuff. So so a lot of us join chambers for the networking possibility, for the ability to get out and meet people. So when I'm looking at a chamber of commerce, and every time we close out the year, we just closed out 2016, I start looking at where the majority of our business is at, and typically I start looking at, should we be joining some other chambers and stuff. One of the first things that I look at is how many events for networking do they have in a month, and am I able to plug into those particular events? Because I realize that most of my chamber or memberships and stuff. Well, my chamber membership is both my real estate team and my training company and stuff. And I realize that, for the most part, my name alone just isn't going to be big enough to kind of drive traffic in and stuff. But me getting out there and meeting with people and getting connected with people, that's going to help drive traffic and drive business over to my way. Normally within chamber organizations, you're going to meet a wide variety of people to meet. You're going to have a wide variety of industries. You're going to have a wide variety of industries and stuff. Apologize if that popped up on your screen saying that, or scanned to our printer went out and stuff. And the number one, and I would recommend within the chambers is to get active. Within my local chamber, I actually sit on the ambassadors group, which is kind of like, we refer to ourselves as the fun section of the chamber. We're kind of like the welcome wagon. We're the ones that, normally you're normally the first faces that people see at various events and stuff. And we reach out to the brand new members and stuff. And I also sit on one of our board of directors. Now, I find it humorous because actually our chamber did a big study. A whole bunch of chambers got together, I guess, across the Western United States region, and did this huge study. And one of the things that they saw that people did not like about chambers was it was another thing to put onto their plate. And, and I was telling, so I always get a kind of a little bit of a ruffled brow from some of my chamber connections and stuff. When I tell people, it's like, if you want to get the most out of your chamber membership is to get, you have to get active within your chamber membership. But I mean, it really truly boils down to is, if you're going to get value out of your chamber membership or any type of networking experience, you have to get active into it and stuff. I see so many people that will join the chamber. They'll go to 2 or 3 events, feel like they don't know how to network. They don't know how to build any connections, and then they get frustrated. And they basically fade away. It's almost like they get kidnapped by witness protection program, and we never see them again. You have to get active with any type of chamber, or any type of networking or networking group that you want to get involved in. Next aspect is a leads group, which is industry locked. This could be, probably our biggies and stuff is BNI, Latip, I Take the Lead, Networking Masters is another one that's kind of growing popularity and stuff. These are leads group that meets, pretty much once a week on a regular basis, and there was what we refer to as industry locked. And so your real estate, your loan officer, your insurance person, and your financial advisor. Those tend to be like your top 4 positions that get locked the fastest. And then a lot of times, if a real estate agent or a loan officer, a mortgage person wants to get into a group, they almost have to start a group and stuff. But they typically will meet once a week, and you normally will have that same group of people. Now, kind of where I discovered the best value with this is, obviously showing up for your weekly meeting, but most importantly, getting some time to spending one-on-one with people outside of that, outside of that weekly meeting. And that's kind of where you get to learn a little bit more about, what their business is about, what they, a little bit about them personally, a little bit about them professionally, and most importantly, what type of referral or what type of business that they're looking for and stuff. And then that kind of helps opens up into a conversation for them to discover a little bit about you. And then the other one is meetup groups. That, typically you see these as open industries. A lot of times, business after hours is probably one of the more common, one of the more bigger nationally known for, branches of this. You go to meetups.com and stuff, and you just search in industry, career and industry. And you typically will see a lot of different groups out there for just about any type of style of industry or in most areas. Typically where I see is they meet about once a week or every other week, or I'm even seeing a couple of them are just once a month. Typically you'll see a core group of people that will kind of always be in there. And then you'll see visitors that will float in and float out. Once again, in this style, the one-on-one meetings really is where you can get some of your best value out of. And actually, let's jump back over into the chamber organizations. I'm even going to recommend it is, every networking event and stuff that you look at there, always be on the lookout for, hey, who's somebody here that I can set up a time frame to get together with one-on-one? That we can get together outside of a normal chamber networking style of meeting and stuff. Because I mean, if you think about it, when you're at a networking style meeting, in theory, you're going to be spending maybe 10, really no more than 10 or 15 minutes with each person and stuff. You don't want to do the 15 to 20 seconds because that's referred to as networking by drive-by. But you're going to spend about, that 10 to 15 minutes. Well, if you do the one-on-one, now you're going to get really kind of more intense, that 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes and stuff, sitting down for a cup of coffee. I want you to understand the key element here is relationship building is the absolute key of of any type of networking group or anything of that aspect that you join. We've all experienced that where somebody has joined an organization and their sole purpose is to collect as many leads as they can and then they pop out. We've all experienced it, we all see it, and the more that we see it, the better we get at spotting it and stuff. And so I mean, it is I know in all three of these and stuff, I have seen people that have popped in with no other reason other than to collect as many leads as they possibly can. And then once they've pretty much felt like they have pilfered all the business that they possibly can out of a group, they leave the group. Now, let's talk about what are some examples of non-traditional networking events. Think about that for a minute as what could be a non-traditional networking event. Well, a lot of these non-traditional networking events, I kind of figured out and I kind of stumbled into, and then, realized, hey, there's a chance here for me to build up some really great connections, some really great, to get to know some new people and build some really great connections. So one of those is ironically is sports or sporting events. Here, I'm, for those of you that don't know me, I when I'm outside of the Pacific Northwest region or Washington State, I always refer to as I'm in Seattle. I'm just south of Seattle in a city called Tacoma, or Seattle likes to refer to as one of their suburbs and stuff. Here in Tacoma, we have a local baseball team called the Tacoma Rainiers that I was a season ticket holder for many, many, many years. And what I discovered is there were other season ticket holders. We typically would always sit in the same area because we would have our seats. For the Tacoma Rainiers, you had certain areas of the park, to grab refreshments and snacks that, only season ticket holders could go to. And through the course of the season, I mean, there's anywhere from 70 to 74 games in the baseball world for your home team and for your team at home, plus their road games and stuff. I got to know a lot of people around me that I probably would have not gotten to know before. And we were all there for the same reason of we wanted to support and root our local team. Well, that got me thinking about what are some other non-traditional networking events that, that I could build some connections with, that I could meet people at. And that get into civic organizations. Probably one of the most commonly known out there is the Rotary or the Kiwanis, or there's many other different type of civic organizations or fraternal style organizations or social clubs and stuff like that. Also look at if there's a particular nonprofit that really speaks to your heart or cause that really speaks to your heart. See if you can find an association that for that, and what it would take to get on their board of directors. It is last year one of my transactions actually came from sitting on a board of directors from a person that I met the year prior and stuff. So, just because you join something doesn't mean you're going to get the immediate business and stuff. And I didn't join that particular board with the anticipation of looking for business, but it was through that joining that board that I actually was, that I started getting to talking to some people that, in all honesty, everything else in my networking, I probably would have never came across them, or would have been a very low likelihood of me coming across them and stuff. And then finally, social events. We just got wrapped up with the holidays and stuff. Just hope everybody had a safe and wonderful New Year's Eve weekend and stuff. But I mean, there were a lot of parties out there, a lot of get-togethers. Now, the thing to keep in mind when you're in your non-traditional networking events and stuff is you're not out there to pitch your product or your service. If you do, you will see people's walls shut down around you or they'll shut down. They'll come up immediately and they'll shut down on you. This is not the time for you to put your salesperson hat on, or I'm a CPA hat or anything of that aspect. This is the time for you to really start building some connections and making some friendships. It was, I was actually at a New Year's Eve party here, and it was actually some friends of mine, but they're also clients of mine. And in all honesty, I really truly recognize probably 0 people in the room and stuff. And so, I mean, when people ask me, it's like, oh, so how do you know so-and-so? And what it boiled down to, if I kind of sat there and went, well, I'm their real estate broker, I helped them buy this house. I mean, literally that sales talk would cause people to immediately throw up their barriers and stuff. But instead I was like, oh, well, my name is Greg. I've known, these people for a while. I actually helped them help them find this home and stuff. And so, I mean, I used it in a very nonchalant, but I still was able to kind of bring in what my business is. And, will I get business out of that party? Maybe yes, maybe no. But you know what? I was there to socialize and have fun and just build some great connections. So let's talk a little bit before we get into some, how to build some connections. Let's talk a little bit about networking fails. You heard me use the term networking by drive-by earlier today, and let's kind of chat a little bit about that. We've all seen this. This is typically somebody that will enter into the room. They look to the left, they look to the right, they look all around, and they smile from ear to ear, and they work. They do the term of called they work the room. And the worst at it are very pushy and abrupt. They'll actually interrupt conversations and stuff to basically collect business cards and sling at business cards. And they'll actually show up at their office the next day with the stack of business cards, and they are so happy and so ecstatic because they actually felt like they accomplished something. How many of us have ever experienced this? And if you are guilty of this, I hope that you have already stopped that, or you do stop this. Because my attitude is somebody that does networking by drive-by should be banned from any networking event for at least the next 6 months. And see, they'll show up at their office the next day. They're all proud and excited because of the stack of business cards, and they have no way to follow up that is something other than the outside of that very awkward conversation of, hi, this is so-and-so with ABC Corporation. We chatted last night. Yeah, remember me? I was kind of the abrupt one, the pushy one. Yeah, we only spent about 10 seconds talking and stuff, so we could swap cards and stuff. Do you need my product or service? I mean, I could pretty much imagine that that's probably how it goes down and stuff. The other networking fail is what I call the wallflower effect. And this is somebody that they connect with nobody. These are typically, they call themselves the introverts. And, hey guys, I mean, I'm going to divulge myself here a little bit. Most people think I'm an extrovert because I'm in sales and I'm a professional speaker and a trainer. Deep down inside, I'm an introvert myself. In all honesty, the majority of Americans are introverts. Now, what makes up an introvert? Somebody that actually recharges in silence. They're okay with being by themselves. They don't always need to have activity, going around to stimulate themselves. They're okay with just kind of relaxing and a little bit of downtime and stuff. Now, I realize when I'm going into a networking event, it's showtime. It's go time. I need to bring my A game on. I need to bring my business game on and stuff. So even though my natural tendency is to, I mean, deep down inside, my natural tendency, and before I had training like this, was to be a wallflower, and I was very good at being a wallflower. I know that may surprise some of you that know me personally and stuff. But I mean, it is, you want to kind of pull yourself out of this, what is called this wallflower effect. You want to kind of want to look for friendlies and stuff. And that kind of leads into with hovering with the same people. Now, don't get me wrong, when I walk into a brand new room and stuff like that, one of the first things I do is I scope out who are my friendlies. Two reasons. Number one, always like to have friendlies around me. And number two, it kind of helps get me into the mode. It kind of helps me break the ice a little bit and stuff. And so the positive aspect of hanging out with some of the same people is you do get a chance to build on an existing relationship. Now the negative is you're not creating any new connections. I have a really good friend of mine. He's in the insurance, the company benefits business and stuff. And I mean, we will see, our paths cross quite a bit professionally, especially at networking events. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll kind of quickly check in with each other of like 3, maybe 5 minutes and stuff. Hey, you doing good? I'm doing good. You're doing good? I'm doing good. What's new in your world? This is what's new. What's new in your world? This is what's doing new. We will literally fist bump each other and go, peace out. And let's go meet some new people. We pretty much figure it's like if we want to get together and just kind of really truly do an in-depth catch up and stuff, we can schedule that somewhere outside of the networking event. And we do and I do count that as one of my one-on-ones because we will get together and stuff about every 6 to 9 months ish or so. Just to catch up, and kind of, just to help each other's game out, and helps each other, us, both of us perfect our craft as we're out there working and networking, building our businesses and stuff. All right, so now let's get into building some great connections, building some, what are some ways to build some connections to make yourself memorable. So when you do follow up, that you will actually have something, that when you do follow up, you will actually have something of substance and you'll have a reason to follow up. So, we've all been asked this question. I hate this question. What do you do? Myself with a real estate background, I'm not sure, but somewhere in our pre-licensing, they kind of did this mind dump into us. And I see this across a whole bunch of other industries. Maybe it's just because people are lazy on how to build connections, or they just don't know any better. So, if you think about it, the question of what do you do? Well, if you ask me, what do I do? It's like, well, I'm a real estate broker. I run a real estate team. I'm a sales and marketing and leadership trainer and professional speaker. Do you really get a chance to get at the heart of what I truly do or why I do what I do? Well, just by asking that 4-letter or that 4-word question, you don't. And we've all fell in that trap and stuff. I mean, and I fell in that trap and stuff until I did some research and got some really cool training on some really powerful, insightful questions and stuff. So I'm going to challenge you, instead of asking the question of what do you do, let's go into some more thought-provoking questions and stuff. So, one of the first questions I'll ask people is, where do you work at? Now, the reason that's very similar to what do you do, but the reason I ask where do you work at is, if you took Towne before real estate, back when I was working, my last corporate job was in the Department of Defense world and stuff. If you ask me, what do you do? I mean, my response would be, well, I scuba dive. I like to go on road trips. I enjoy traveling because at that time frame, I did not associate my profession with me personally. My profession was just what I happened to do Monday through Friday from, well, at the time, 7:30 to 4. I was on most people 9 to 5 and stuff, but there's some sort of variations within those hours and stuff. But if you would have asked me, where do I work at? Well, then, then I would have said, I work for this company. I mean, some people out there that may be a little bit of a smart ass and stuff will say, "Well, I work in Tacoma." Oh, great. Okay, so what whereabouts do you do for work in Tacoma or something of that aspect? So, this is going to be a really great question as far as somebody that, they're in a profession where they're a business owner, or they're kind of they own their own job. If they're purely just like a real estate broker or an insurance producer, um, where that does kind of become a little bit of their own personal identity, but that's also going to work with somebody like, well, kind of like that board of directors, uh, business that we received last year, where the wife was a financial advisor and the husband was a state trooper and stuff. So, my next follow up question to that is, what led you into that? Or, if that feels a little bit too, personal, it's like, what inspired you to go into that? What I've discovered is this is a great chance to build some connection with the person. Think about it for a moment. Go back in time when you were in, elementary school, middle school, high school. There's only one person that I know of that when he graduated high school, he said, I want to be a school teacher. And even to this day, in his mid 50s, he is a school teacher and he most days loves it and enjoys it. You go back to when I was in middle school or high school, the thought of being, I didn't want to be in real estate. I didn't want to be in training and stuff. Heck, I wanted to be a rock star, an astronaut, a cowboy. And I had no intent, to be a real estate broker or, a trainer and stuff. That hadn't even crossed my mind. And the reason, and basically what leads us into our careers and our professions is, most of us, we come into a particular business, especially somebody that's on this webinar and stuff. You're going to come into your business, you're going to come into your profession because there's a reason for it. There's a calling for you to kind of go into doing what you do. So, a lot of times asking people what led you into that, it really gives you some in depth into, okay, what type of person they are. Well, what is the, what do they value? What are things that they enjoy? What led them into the profession where they're at? I always like to ask them, what was it like your first day? Again, this is some great connection building time. I mean, I tell people, it's like, think back in your first day in your profession and stuff. It was probably one of the best moments of your life. And on top of that, probably one of the most scariest moments of your life. I mean, I look back at when I left corporate America and, I was full-time real estate, no more safety net, no more security net, no more merely just getting paid to show up to work and having to look like I was busy. I actually got paid on absolutely what I produced. And, showed up first thing in the morning because that's what I did in corporate America. Didn't realize most real estate brokers did roll into the office first thing in the morning. And it was myself and the president of the company. And I remember standing in the resource room. I'm looking around thinking, what do I do now? And the president of the company and stuff, he's sitting in his office and he's just kind of peered around, around his desk and looking outside his door and looking at me and is like, and he just started laughing. He's like, you have no clue what to do you, Greg? I'm like, no, I don't. What do I do? So, it's like, even now, so many years later, 10 plus years later, and stuff, I look back on that and I smile. And it's like, I remember that experience, like, it was just yesterday. Ask them, what do you like most about what you do? Once again, we're building some great connection. Also getting to know about what the person likes. I mean, think about it for a moment here. What do you like most about what you do? Now, granted, it's really easy for us to think about what do we dislike about it, or hopefully you're you're in a field that you truly enjoy what you do, and it truly does not feel like it's work. And so, I mean, but there, as I tell people, it's like, most days I absolutely feel like what I do is not work. Now, I do have those rare exceptions where I kind of sit there and go, yep, this is work and stuff. But, I mean, when you get people sharing with you about what they like most about what they do, they're really building a connection with you. They're really building, they're really getting they're really getting intense with you. They're building a connection with you. You're doing something more than just that, that 1 to 2, that 30 second to maybe 90-second quick little elevator sales pitch and stuff. They're really getting to know you one-on-one now. And then I always like to kind of bring them bring them back into the present and stuff. So we kind of talked about what led them, what do they do? What led them into it? What was it like when they first started? Now I want to bring them back into the present stuff. And I'll ask them, it's like, what are you working on now? And so, so I mean, that will really give you some insight as far as, what projects they have going on right now, or what type of customer or clientele that they're looking at for right now. Um, I mean, if you think about it, through these 5 questions, you just really got some really great insight, and you just learned a lot about what type of person this is, and probably gives you some really great insight of, would I want to work with this person professionally, or would I not want to work with this person professionally? So sooner or later, they're going to all of a sudden notice that, hey, I've been chatting with you quite a bit, and I've been telling you a lot about myself, and I have no clue who you are. So now keep in mind, they have not had this training that you just received and stuff. They have don't have they don't know how to ask these questions that that you've just learned about and stuff. So they're going to look at you and go, oh, well, I've been talking about myself quite a bit. What do you do? Or tell me about yourself. And now you have the opportunity to take your message and take what you do, and you can tailor that message so that so that they can receive it, they can hear it, and it fits them perfectly. Now, when I say tailor it, I don't mean give them a BS answer of that you think that they want to hear, or that you feel is going to work best for them and stuff, because we've once again, you get into that inauthentic self. We've all experienced that. And but I mean, so now, but you want to be able to kind of share with them of what you do, and you can even share that through the art of a story and stuff. You can talk, you've now learned a few of their points that are near and dear to their heart. Well, now you could share, like, within a story of, well, let me tell you a little bit about a customer that I recently helped that was very similar in a industry like yours, or enjoyed us, had a similar interest that you have, or something of that aspect. What I've discovered is these 5 questions, they work wonders not only in the professional setting, but also in social settings. I'm a single person, and I've actually used this a lot of times on on dates and stuff, or blind dates, or first time meeting somebody. And those are all, in all honesty, it's one of the best icebreakers I have ever come across and I've ever learned. And the really cool thing is, it truly gets people talking to and communicating back and forth about themselves. So now, when you follow up with this person, or hopefully you've set up a one-on-one with them, time frame to get together with them on the spot and stuff, now you have a true connection. Now you'll have a reason to follow up. Most importantly, now they're going to welcome your call. I mean, think about it. If we did that networking by drive-by, that awkward conversation of, hi, you remember me? I'm the ABC technology guy. We sell the widget, and oh yeah, well, I know I didn't really chat too much about it because we just really quickly swapped cards and stuff, but I was just calling to see if you needed a new widget. Instead of having that awkward conversation, now you can have the conversation something to the effect of, hey, Jake, Greg Towne, how are you doing? Hey, was just following up from our networking event. Man, tell me about your fishing trip. Did you go last weekend, or something of that aspect? So now, now we've got some sort of personal connection. They're going to actually recognize your name when it comes over and stuff, though. Some trainers out there, they refer to networking as networking is a numbers game. In some aspects, I can agree with that, but for the most part, I'm going to say network is not always a numbers game. I would definitely take quality over quantity any day of the week and stuff. For me, when I go to a networking event, in all honesty, what I'm looking for, what are 2 new connections that I can build out of this, or 2 connections that I can cement and further expand upon. I don't want to build a connection with, 20 to 30 people, or, again, some of your very big, chamber events, or your very big networking events. I can't build a connection with 200 to 300 people and stuff. But can I build a connection with 2 people? Absolutely. So I want you to realize something. Success is, I mean, this saying right here, this is actually one of our callings within my team and stuff. And that is, success is never owned. It is rented, and the rent is due daily. Now, I want you to understand, you have to take daily actions to achieve and keep success. The greatest sports teams train regularly to achieve their success. We're in January, right? In January 2017 right now. The Super Bowl, or I don't know if I can call it the Super Bowl. We'll call it the big game. Well, we're not making money off of it, so I don't think I can. I think I can call it whatever I want to. But do you think that these teams and stuff? Do you think that whoever the final two teams are, do you think they're just going to show up with no practice? Absolutely not. Football's not your game. Whatever game or sports or something that you enjoy, or like myself personally, I'm not a big sports nut and stuff. I mean, I enjoy more the social aspects of games and stuff. But I realize, like, professional golfers or anything of that aspect, they train. Anybody that's treats something as a profession, they train. And I find it ironic that those of us in the business world, a lot of us don't understand that same concept and stuff. Every top producer or performer in your industry has a coach or mentor, along with a game plan of how to use and stay on top of the game. And I always tell people the number one investment you can make is absolutely 100% in yourself. So, this is actually one of my favorite pictures here. I apologize for those of you that may be eating your lunch while you're watching this and stuff, but I figured this is my attention grabber and stuff. And I always ask people, are you committed or are you interested? A very good friend of mine. She was a ballet dancer growing up. She spent some time as a professional ballet dancer. She's now a ballet mom. Her oldest daughter just got, on the East Coast and stuff, just got hired by one of the top ballet companies out there and stuff. And I first saw this picture and I shot at her. I'm like, is this true? Is this what ballet dancers' feet look like? She said, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so many of us will look at, the ballet dancers as they gracefully float across, literally, it looks like they're floating across the stage and stuff. And we watch that and just in awe. And I mean, and we don't realize that underneath that shoe is all the practice and all the conditioning and all the hard work that went into that. They just didn't wake up one day and say, I'm just going to magically float and gracefully glide across the stage and stuff. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about your business builder's game, or as I call this, the business math. And kind of the analogy is you got to know your math. You got to know your business math to get the cash. So we all do activities. There are activities that we do to help lead generate. There are activities that we do to help bring business into our funnel. From those activities, create leads. Now, our best way to following up on those leads, and then if we're doing a good job of following up on those leads, that leads into appointments made. Now, I wish that I said that, that we all, 100% of all of our appointments we conducted. Unfortunately, life comes up. Things get rescheduled, things get moved around, people may no-show you. There's definitely techniques and stuff that, that we can talk about as far as helping kind of tie in an appointment time frame and stuff. But not, we don't conduct all those appointments that we made and stuff. So out of the appointments conducted, we get clients, and out of those clients, we get contracts. Now, what are your numbers and stuff? So, I mean, this is an exercise that I do a lot with my own coaching, my own personal coaching clients and stuff is, we'll take a look at, okay, what do we want to generate for the next 12 months or the next, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, or what have you. And so, I mean, when we start working the business math backwards and stuff, okay, out of each contract, what does that equate to? What is your average income, income per contract and stuff? So, let's just say it's, we want to make $60,000 and we make $5,000 per contract and stuff. Well, that's 12 contracts. So we need, so in order to get 12 contracts, how many clients do we need? Because do all of our clients turn into income, turn into finally getting paid and stuff? In the real estate world, no. We have buyers that they never buy, or they do something that they fall out of qualification, or they get transferred out of the area, or they, or something happens and, you separate from them. Listings and stuff, not all listings sell. So, I mean, but it's, and I see the same within insurance world, the insurance producers and stuff. Not everybody makes it through underwriting or anything of that aspect and stuff. So, I mean, how many clients do you need to make those contracts? Well, okay, now that we know how many clients we need, how many appointments do we need to conduct to get those, clients that we want to work with. Well, you can, now that we know how many appointments we need to conduct, how many appointments do we need to make? Okay, so now that we know how many appointments we need to make, how many leads do we need to get so that we can make those appointments? And then then we go back into what are the activities that we need to do so that we can get that quality and that type of, that amount of leads in. So I want you to think here I want you to kind of think here. You can screenshot this or, catch us on the replay and stuff. But what are some of the, what are some of the, I want you to kind of look at this, and I really want you to dive into what is your business math. So the last thing I do every day is do some daily planning and some reflecting. I deal in the realities. I cut out the crap. I really truly look at, did I spend the last, 12, 16, 18 hours operating in my highest and best use of my time? Kind of what it boils down to is, if I could go back, if I was working for somebody else, would they hire me or would they fire me? Or if I was working for me, if an employee was doing this, would I hire them or would I fire them off of their last day's performance? When you truly understand the value of time, you absolutely 100% will start working your highest and best use of it. So I'll chat with you a little bit about our advanced next level training. It's our business growth mastermind. Now, what this is going to be a chance for you to fast track your business for success. We're going to get really in depth on generating leads, how to follow up with leads, and most importantly, converting those leads into paying clients or customers for you. So it's an 8-week hardcore in-depth training program. First week, we're going to be, discovering your why and the true value of time. We're also going to go into how do you set up your day for success. We're going to spend 2 full weeks on dealing with the roadmap to the sale. I find it ironic. Everybody wants the great closing techniques or the great silver bullet and stuff. Well, if you do a really great job of working the prospect down through the roadmap to the sale, you don't need, you're solving their problem. You're taking care of their issue. At that point, you don't need the latest whiz bang, closing technique or closing strategy. And what I discover is those that use those type of techniques, they get a lot of product cancellations, or they get the returns or something of that aspect. We're going to talk about networking and prospecting. We're going to go really in depth on social media. Just about everybody on today's session and just about every industry out there can work through social media. I understand there's certain industries where there's certain industries where you have to be very much into compliance with your company. I'm always going to recommend you err with the side of what your company dictates for you to go with. But, there are certain aspects that you can utilize within your social media to really help build some great connections. We're going to talk about phone strategies, definitely get into follow-up strategies. And one of the most important things is how to generate referrals. If you're not generating referrals, you're continuously having your first year of business year in and year out. There's the old sales analogy of, January 1st, you start back at zero. I say bullshit on that. January 1st, you should start in with, hey, here's my warm sphere. Here's the people that know me, like me, and trust me. And here are the people that are willing to refer business to me. So each week is between 60 to 90 minutes of live, in-depth virtual training. And we always have a question and answer period. You're also going to have a private Facebook group with just mastermind members. This is going to be a private group. This is not open to the public. Where we can answer questions, network, and a great way to mastermind. I tell people my best growth relationships have come from masterminds just like this. I actually sit on a couple that's across the U.S., and these are intense. I've gotten some really great connections out of them. You're going to have weekly action items. This absolutely is a boot camp style training. You're given assignments and you are held accountable. It is, if you're truly looking at moving your business to the next level, this is going to be absolutely great for you. Execution is the beat of your business, and the second it stops is the second your business begins to die. So I always find it funny. We live in this crazy world where people give themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, spend 4+ years of their life to get an education. I mean, I look at the dentists and the attorneys and the CPAs and the chiropractors. And they very rarely ever learn the skills necessary so they learn how to build and promote their business so they become successful. For an extremely small amount of money, you'll learn the necessary skills plus get coaching on how to create your business marketing plan. It'll help generate 7+ figures each year. So this 8-week boot camp with in-depth hardcore coaching plus plus interaction of inside Facebook group, along with daily access to me. Now, if you were to reach out to me for a one-on-one coaching for this 8 weeks for this time frame and stuff, and all honesty, you would spend almost $3,600. And now keep in mind that is just one-on-one coaching. So keep in mind, we're not charging $3,600. We're not charging $2,000, any garbage like that. The reason is because with a mastermind and stuff, there's more people. So, I mean, it actually helps us kind of leverage each other and stuff. So this 8-week business mastermind growth is $349. Now, you may have seen other people and stuff where they'll talk about, we're not, go to our website, $19.95, but you're not going to do that today because we like people to take actions. We're going to do $14.95, not $14.95, not $9.95. I don't play that game. I look at it this way. I want to give top level trainings and education, and I want to keep it at a price point where it's affordable for most people, but yet still, big enough to where people are going to, I'm just going to get those that are serious and committed. I don't want to waste my time with tire kickers is what it boils down to. So with that, we also offer you 100% money back guarantee. Now, just like my real estate business and coaching business, I back up my actions with performance guarantee. So within 30 calendar days of our last training sessions, if you have done the work, which basically means you've attended each session, you complete and you show you've done all the homework, the action steps, and the weekly commitments, and if you feel this program is not worth every penny, I'll refund the full amount, and you get to keep everything of the content. So with that promise, 100% certainty, though, this will be the best investment that you've ever made in your career. This program starts is Tuesday, January 20. You will see that we have 3 different, start times and stuff because I know we have people all across the U.S. All these, these times here and stuff, all Pacific Standard Time and stuff. So Tuesday, January 24th, 6 p.m. Wednesday, January 25th at 12 noon and 2 p.m. The Wednesday group that would normally meet on March 1st, I've actually got an engagement that day. So we're actually going to be meeting on February 28th, the Wednesday prior to that. So $349. What does that break down to? $6.23 per day. So if you think about it, if you decided to pack your lunch every day for the next 8 weeks, that savings alone will have covered the training. So to register, just jump over to gregttrainings.com. Click on the mastermind groups and look for the buy it now. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into here, into our question and answer period here. I'm going to see if I can minimize this out and put me here. Okay, now everybody here should see me and stuff. So any questions and stuff you guys feel, just go ahead and drop them into the question box. Don't see any so far. Also, just to let you, if you wanted to have like your team on this type of training or something of that aspect, this is the first for this week and next week. We're actually doing a social media rock star and the roadmap to the sale. Those should be coming up. Same website, gregttrainings.com. You should be able to same website that you use to log into this training session and stuff. You should be able to see that there also. So we've got those coming up here. Between I think our next one is actually tomorrow, then Wednesday. That I'm down to Portland for a couple of days, and then next week I think Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is where we're going to be wrapping up and stuff. All right. So last chance, last call for somebody to pop some questions in there. If not, we are almost back up at the top of the hour. So I kind of kept this right about that 60-minute level, which is where I wanted to be at and stuff. Once again, the same website that you popped in, that you used to register, you use that to register for the mastermind. Any questions that you have, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Podbean, any of our social media and stuff to stay connected with us. So with that, still not seeing any questions pop in. And so with that, we'll go ahead and start wrapping everything up. And just wanted to tell you guys, thank you for spending the last hour with me. And I hope you guys make it a great day. And let's go rock it and kick some major butt for 2017. All right. You guys have a wonderful afternoon, and I will chat with you later.